The knock came just after midnight, sharp and desperate, cutting through the silence of the old farmhouse like a cry for help. Ethan Carter, a lonely single father, froze with his hand on the sink, water still running. Midnight visitors never meant anything good, especially out here, miles from the nearest town. His daughter Lily slept upstairs, curled around her stuffed rabbit, unaware that fate was standing on their porch. Ethan wiped his hands slowly, heart pounding, mind racing through every possible danger. He hadn't invited trouble into his life in years, not since his wife died and the world taught him how cruel chance could be. Still, something about that knock, urgent, almost afraid, pulled him forward. When he opened the door, the cold wind rushed in, carrying with it a woman drenched in rain, trembling, her eyes wide with terror. He didn't know it yet, but this single decision would change everything. She stood there barefoot, mud clinging to her dress, her dark hair plastered to her face. Her lips trembled as if she had rehearsed begging and now couldn't remember the words. Ethan hesitated only a second before stepping aside. He saw fear before suspicion, and fear always won with him. "Please," she whispered, voice cracking, "I just need one night." That was all she said, but her eyes told a story of running, hiding, and loss. He glanced toward the dark road behind her, then back at the woman shivering on his porch. One night, he told himself. Just shelter. Just kindness. He didn't ask her name. He didn't ask why. He closed the door behind her, locking it without realizing he might be locking danger inside. Inside, the house smelled of wood smoke and old memories. Ethan handed her a towel, then another, noticing her hands were shaking too hard to dry herself. She flinched at every sound, the creak of the floor, the distant howl of wind. When he offered her tea, she nodded like the simplest comfort felt undeserved. Upstairs, Lily stirred, and Ethan felt a familiar knot of fear. He had sworn to protect his daughter from everything the world could throw at them. Yet here he was, bringing a stranger into their home. The woman noticed his glance toward the stairs and lowered her eyes. "I won't hurt anyone," she said quietly, as if reading his thoughts. Ethan didn't respond, but something in her tone, tired, honest, made him believe her. She sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in one of his wife's old sweaters, steam rising from the mug in her hands. The silence between them grew heavy, thick with unasked questions. Ethan finally spoke, his voice low. "You can stay until morning." Relief washed over her face so quickly it almost hurt to see. She whispered a thank you that sounded like a prayer. Outside, a car passed slowly on the distant road, headlights cutting briefly through the darkness. The woman stiffened, her fingers tightening around the cup. Ethan noticed, and for the first time, fear crept in. Not fear of her, but fear for her. Whatever she was running from wasn't far. Later, as Ethan laid blankets on the couch, she apologized again and again for the trouble. He told her it was fine, that the house had been too quiet anyway. That was the truth. Since his wife's death, loneliness had settled into every corner of the farmhouse. Nights were the hardest. He slept lightly, always half awake, listening for Lily's breathing. As he turned off the lights, he caught the woman staring at a framed photo on the wall. Him, his wife, and Lily, smiling in the sun. Her eyes softened, then filled with something like grief. "You're a good father," she said softly. Ethan didn't answer. Compliments about his parenting always felt like reminders of who was missing. Sleep didn't come easily. Ethan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the night in his mind. Every instinct told him to stay alert. Around 2 a.m., a sound snapped him awake, the low rumble of an engine outside. He slipped from bed and peered through the window. A dark SUV idled at the edge of his property, lights off. His stomach dropped. Whoever she was running from had found the place. Ethan thought of Lily, then of the woman downstairs. He could pretend he saw nothing, let fate handle it. Instead, he grabbed his jacket and quietly checked the locks. Protecting people had always come naturally to him, even strangers. Downstairs, he found the woman sitting upright on the couch, eyes fixed on the door. "They're here," she whispered. The fear in her voice was no longer subtle, it was raw. Ethan asked who they were, but she shook her head. "Please," she said, tears forming, "just don't open the door." The SUV's engine cut off. Footsteps crunched on gravel. Ethan positioned himself between the door and the woman without thinking. In that moment, he wasn't a widower or a farmer, he was a shield. A knock followed, heavier than hers had been. This one carried authority, impatience, and threat. "Open up," a man's voice called. Ethan's heart raced, but his face stayed calm. He cracked the door just enough to speak. The man outside wore a dark coat, his eyes sharp and cold. He claimed they were looking for a missing relative, said there had been an accident. Ethan lied without hesitation, saying no one else was there. The man's gaze flicked past him, scanning the interior. For a long second, Ethan thought it was over. Then the man smiled, a thin, dangerous smile, and said, "We'll be back." The SUV drove away, but the silence it left behind was worse. When the door closed, the woman collapsed into sobs. Ethan knelt beside her, unsure how to comfort someone whose pain he barely understood. Between tears, she confessed that her name was Anna and that she had escaped from people who wanted to control her, erase her. She couldn't say more, not yet. Ethan didn't push. Some truths needed time. Upstairs, Lily called out in her sleep, and Anna flinched. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never meant to drag a child into this." Ethan shook his head. "You didn't," he said firmly. "I chose to open the door." Morning arrived pale and cold. Sunlight revealed the exhaustion etched into Anna's face. Over breakfast, Lily studied the stranger with curious eyes. Anna smiled gently, keeping her distance, and Lily smiled back, the kind of open, trusting smile that made Ethan's chest ache. Watching them together, he felt something stir inside him, something like hope mixed with fear. Anna thanked him again, saying she would leave as soon as it was safe. Ethan nodded, though part of him knew safety wasn't something you could predict. The world had already proven that. By noon, the SUV returned, this time with 2 vehicles. Ethan knew running was no longer an option. He hid Anna in the cellar and told Lily to stay upstairs no matter what. When the men knocked, he opened the door with steady hands. They pushed inside, searching, accusing, threatening. Ethan stood his ground, every word measured, every breath controlled. He lied better than he ever had before. When they finally left, frustrated and empty-handed, his knees nearly gave out. He had protected his family, both the one he was born into and the one fate had dropped at his door. That night, Anna told him everything. She wasn't just running, she was hiding from powerful people who needed her silent. She had witnessed something she shouldn't have, something that could destroy lives. Ethan listened, realizing the weight of what he had taken on. Fear settled deep in his bones, but regret never came. Protecting her felt right, inevitable, like this was always meant to happen. Days turned into weeks. The farmhouse became a refuge. Anna helped around the house, read to Lily, laughed softly at small moments. Slowly, warmth returned to spaces that had been cold for years. Ethan caught himself smiling more, breathing easier. But danger lingered like a shadow at the edge of every day. They all knew this peace couldn't last forever. When the authorities finally came, not the men in dark coats, but real help, truth followed. Anna's testimony exposed crimes that reached farther than anyone expected. The men stopped coming. Silence returned, but this time it wasn't lonely. It was healing. Anna prepared to leave once everything was over. She stood on the porch where it had all begun, suitcase in hand. Ethan felt the old ache of loss stirring again. Lily hugged Anna tightly, refusing to let go. Anna's eyes filled with tears as she looked at Ethan. "You saved my life," she said. Ethan shook his head. "You reminded us how to live." She left, but she didn't disappear. Letters came, then visits. Slowly, cautiously, something new grew between them, not born of fear, but of choice. Trust. Understanding. Months later, Anna returned for good. Not as someone running, but as someone choosing to stay. The farmhouse felt different, alive, full. Ethan realized that opening his door for one night had given him more than he ever imagined. He had thought he was protecting a stranger. In truth, he had protected his own heart from closing forever. Lily laughed more now. The house echoed with life. Grief didn't disappear, but it softened, making room for joy. Ethan learned that courage wasn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was just opening a door when fear told you not to. Anna learned that kindness could be stronger than power, and that safety sometimes lived in unexpected places. Together, they built something fragile but real, shaped by scars and hope alike. The road outside the farmhouse stayed quiet. The past loosened its grip. Ethan never forgot that night, the rain, the knock, the choice. Because one decision had rewritten his future. Love didn't arrive loudly. It arrived carefully. And this time, it stayed. All because a lonely single dad opened his door for one night, without knowing who he was protecting.